All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're looking at what happens when the unstoppable force of the AI boom runs smack into the immovable object of the Federal Reserve. It's a fascinating story about a massive market sell-off and the really tough choices investors are facing right now. So, let's set the scene. The date is Thursday, November 13th, 2025. And for anyone invested in the market, especially in tech, this was a day where the music just stopped. Let's dig into how it all went down. Wow, it was just a sea of red right from the opening bell. The major indexes took a nosedive and pretty much stayed there all day. The tech-heavy Nasdaq got hit the hardest, dropping a whopping 2.3%. The S&P 500 and the Dow weren't far behind, both shedding 1.6%. Make no mistake, this wasn't just a little dip. This was a full-blown tech-led rout. So, how in the world do you make sense of a day like this? Well, there are really two competing narratives playing out. On one side, you have the optimists saying, hey, this is just a healthy correction, something the market needed. But then you've got the other side, the pessimists, saying, oh, this looks like a perfect storm, maybe the start of a real breakdown. We're going to explore both sides of that argument. First things first, let's dissect what exactly had the market so spooked. You know, it wasn't just one single thing. It was this powerful combination of three different forces all hitting at the very same time. You can really see how this became a perfect storm. It was like a 1-2-3 punch. First, the Fed starts sounding tough on inflation again. Then, this bombshell drops that the Fed might be missing some super important data. And all of this is happening while that big question about an AI bubble just boils over. And here it is. This is the quote that really sent a chill through the market. When Boston Fed President Susan Collins said this, it just poured ice-cold water on everyone's hopes for a rate cut in December. The market had been counting on that, and this one comment sent the odds of a rate cut just plummeting. And you know who that hurts the most? High-growth tech stocks. This is where the uncertainty really kicks into high gear. I mean, just as the Fed is trying to navigate this incredibly tricky economic landing, the White House comes out and warns that crucial data, we're talking inflation and jobs reports, might be gone for good because of the shutdown. That means the Fed could be flying blind, making these massive decisions without its most important gauges. And if there's one thing markets absolutely hate, it's that kind of uncertainty. And this gets right to the heart of the tension in the market. It's like a heavyweight fight. In one corner, you have the incredible, powerful story of this multi-year AI supercycle. But in the other corner, you have Michael Burry, the guy from The Big Short, who just revealed he's making massive bets against AI darlings like NVIDIA. That just adds a ton of fuel to the fire for anyone worried this is all a big speculative bubble. Okay, so we've talked about the big picture forces. Now let's zoom in and see how all of this actually played out for the individual companies that were making headlines. Man, this slide really gives you a snapshot of the carnage. The AI leaders, NVIDIA and Palantir, they just got hammered, down 3.6% and 6.5%. They got hit by both the rate fears and that Michael Burry news. Tesla tumbled over 6.6%, caught in the broad tech sell-off and news of a battery recall. And Disney, wow, plunged almost 8% after their revenue missed what people were hoping for. But look, there was one bright spot, Cisco. It actually surged 4.6% after reporting fantastic earnings. And the reason? You guessed it. Booming demand for AI infrastructure. So, after a brutal day like this, the big question on everyone's mind is, where do we go from here? And, you can really map out three completely different paths that investors are thinking about right now. The first path is for the true believers, the ones who think the AI revolution is the real deal. From their point of view, today was just some turbulence, a temporary setback in a massive technological shift that's really just getting started. People who believe in this path will point straight to Cisco's earnings and say, see, the demand is real. They'll argue we're only in the second inning of a 9-inning game here. For them, a drop like today's isn't a red flag at all. It's a buying opportunity to get into the big names like NVIDIA at a discount. Okay, the second path is way more cautious. It's less focused on the whole AI dream and much more worried about the risk that the Fed, with its tough stance, might actually tip the whole economy into a recession. This strategy is all about playing defense. Investors on this path are worried the Fed, flying blind without its data, is going to make a huge mistake. They're looking at warning signs, like record-high delinquencies on auto loans, and thinking, okay, it's time to move my money out of those high-flying tech stocks and into safer areas, like biotech, which tend to do better when the economy slows down. And then there's path number 3. And this one? This is a bet that the Fed is going to blink. This strategy is all about anticipating that the Fed will eventually be forced to backpedal, cut rates, and flood the market with cash all over again. Yeah, this is basically a bet on a Fed pivot. The idea is that any real sign of economic weakness will force their hand, and they'll start cutting rates to save jobs. And if that happens, who benefits the most? Often, it's financial stocks, which get a big boost from the idea of a new easing cycle.
All right, let's pull all of this together. We've looked at the sell-off, the individual stocks, the possible paths forward. So what's the final word? What should you really be keeping an eye on?
At the end of the day, it all comes back to those two stories we started with. The sunny, positive take is that this was just a necessary reset, and you have proof, right? Cisco's earnings show the AI trend is solid. The negative view, though, it says this is the first real crack in the market's foundation, arguing the Fed is in a tough spot, AI stock prices are just nuts, and the consumer is getting weaker. So it really boils down to two huge questions that are now hanging over this market. First, is there a risk of a policy mistake? Is the Fed, without its usual data, going to tighten too much and cause a recession? And second, the big AI profit question. Can these amazing companies actually make enough money to justify their sky-high stock prices? The answers to those two questions will probably tell us where the market is headed next.
Ultimately, it feels like the market's AI-powered supercar just hit a massive pothole. And the big question we're all left with is this. Is this just a jolt that calls for a quick pit stop before it takes off again? Or is this the start of a total breakdown on the side of the road? The answer really depends on whether that powerful engine of AI innovation is strong enough to handle the treacherous road conditions the Fed is creating.